Hello, I'm Martijn Gaat and this is Does Logistics Matter? A podcast on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics. Answering yes to the question today is Global Chief Sales Officer Gavin Polizzo of Cloudstaff. In this episode, we talk about trends and developments in the labor market, how to effectively leverage and manage remote teams, and how outsourcing can alleviate the pressure on supply chain and logistics companies. Please enjoy my conversation with Gavin Polizzo. Hi, Gavin. Welcome to the show.
Martin, thank you for having me.
Of course. The first question on this podcast is always, does logistics matter?
Absolutely. Logistics definitely matters, especially in the world we live in where we want everything instantaneous. Yes, it does matter.
I'm glad that it's again a yes. What's your personal or your business connection to supply chain and logistics?
I am the global chief sales officer for an outsourcing company called Cloudstaff based in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is work with small to medium-sized business owners on all types of outsourced roles. And within logistics and supply chain, some of those roles could be back office support, customer service, lead gen. So we do partner with various supply chain and logistics companies in Australia, the UK, EMEA, and the US of A.
So obviously for today, the topic that we are going to discuss is outsourcing and the labor market. I think we've had a very interesting 2.5 years in which a lot has happened, and I guess the way that a lot of countries in the world are approaching work and labor has completely changed. I'm curious what your take is on the state of the current labor market.
Yeah, I mean, well, one thing that sticks out using the U.S. as a brief example is you've got unemployment rates at an all-time low, and really you have this influx of jobs versus people that are available for work. You're seeing that in other countries as well as companies look to reduce some costs to continue to stay relevant.
Yeah, so it's in the U.S. and in Europe here as well. Many companies are struggling to find people. Where we come from a situation where people were struggling to find jobs.
The talent shortage is extremely relevant, and it's also the skills that we're looking for that aren't always available in front of us in our existing countries or in an onshore environment as well. So you've got a couple different challenges in front of you, and it's not just the talent shortage, but also the time it takes to source a skilled worker that you may need for your business and the dedicated time that goes with that. So there's, besides the talent, it's the time, and then it comes down to the economics of it as well. So there's a handful of issues that small business owners within logistics and supply chain are facing today.
So how do you see them cope with these challenges? I mean, a lot of these logistics companies need jobs filled, like drivers, forklift drivers, order pickers, people to man the pack stations. Now there are many temp agencies servicing these logistics companies. What developments do you see when it comes to outsourcing? Because your look on outsourcing is more from a back office perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple different things, right? So you've got companies based in these countries working with these temp agencies. They're fighting the retention battle because it's a temp role, and people tend to move around from temp role to temp role. And that's tough because you've spent time and dedicated effort to train them on the skill. You've got wage issues going on as well, where wages are on the rise, and you're in a very, very competitive environment where people are going from job to job for the better wage. So you've got that challenge in front of you as well. So what small business owners, especially in logistics and supply chain, can do is continue that model, but also shift some of their back office approach to outsource, where I think not many business owners have delve into that quite yet. I think they're a little bit hesitant, to say the least, because they're overseeing roles that are critical to the business, like accounting or
Yeah.
even SEO management of their websites and their marketing, or potentially your financial analyst. Those roles have always been traditionally an onshore role, or even inventory management has been considered an in the building role, I should say.
Yeah, in the building.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
And in the building role. So to get people to trust the fact that the pandemic has taught us how to work with people remotely, and to performance manage from remotely, and to use the technology we have, you can still have a great relationship with an employee and get the best out of them in a remote environment as you would as if they were in the building. So I think it's a matter of for business owners to really take a look at outsourcing, especially with these back office roles, because you're just going to have the same situation you have with your order pickers, your forklift drivers, where there's going to be wage competition, there's going to be retention challenges. If you can pull in some of these roles through an outsource with countries like the Philippines, India, Colombia, places where you have great English language, willing to work the hours in your time zone, and highly educated, you can definitely continue your growth and your trajectory by remaining relevant and not have to worry about the retention challenges.
Yeah, and so this is one of the things that one of the good things that came out of the pandemic. I mean, obviously there were bad things, but one of the good things is a new look on how remote work is possible, and that it is possible. I think a lot of companies didn't even, it wasn't even an option for most companies.
I remember distinctly March 13th, which was a Friday, where we were given instructions by senior leadership at a previous company I worked at to go home. And it took us a good 72 hours to figure out what's next. How do we stay in business? How do we stay relevant? And we did a complete shift of a face-to-face sales model to a remote selling model. And there was,
Yeah.
challenges with training and learning, but every company went through that, even in all industries, including supply chain logistics. And they're still to this day figuring out new ways to pull people into the culture, drive performance, and get the very best out of folks in various roles, especially in these back office type opportunities.
So if you look at operating a back office staff on remote locations, how does that work? How do companies do this?
So with with our companies that we partner with, they tend to obviously lean on the skills and the job description that they're looking for. So they want to hire the right people, and many
Yeah.
outsourcing companies will partner with business owners to get take in what job pieces they want that are really relevant to the role. And then we work with the business owner to basically pull together a 2, 3, 4 applicant pool that they can choose from for that one role they have open, and ensure we're getting the right candidates in front of them. And then from there, it's a matter of assisting them in how they would manage them, how they would develop them and train them. They already have the skills coming in, so now it's a matter of pulling them into your company's culture. And I've seen a wide variety of how people do this, and some things are really interesting. People will obviously, like today, we're talking, and we're both on camera. It's as if we're sitting across the table from each other.
Yeah.
Similar in the work environment too, but I've also seen it where take a customer service group, or maybe a group of dispatchers. I've seen logistics business owners have a TV hang on the wall and a camera, and they're able to talk to the whole group right at once, as if they were to walk into their own little customer service call center and have a conversation. And they're able to give some accolades, do a quick training, coach people up. It's a matter of using the technology we have in front of us. One thing I would say that outsourcing companies also model, like my company that I work with, has a great platform to manage performance, where we can know exactly where our staffers are at the time, what they're working on, what they're engaged with. All of that can be done through some of the technological abilities we give with the app that we have to see what's going on. So you can manage that performance piece real time.
Yeah. So and then are you talking about the type of manager that wants to know every detail of what everybody is doing, or are you more talking about a performance? Like, no, that's not the word I was looking for. So you have managers that really do detailed management, like what's he doing, what's he working on, like now, minute per minute, and you have the manager that says like, I'll track based on output.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of having a balance, right? I think you want to have a balanced approach.
Mm.
No one wants to be tracked minute by minute on exactly what they're working on. However,
Yeah.
you do have the ability to do that. You do have the technology is there, so you can see exactly what steps they're taking to get the desired output that maybe you're looking for. Or it's dovetailing our systems with your systems to track your inventory and see what counts are actually happening. Or maybe it's more of a back office type role to talk about your accounts receivable or payable to see what the business is looking like from your point of view versus theirs. The point is, we have the ability now in today's environment to not only pull people in from a cultural standpoint, but also to measure them down to the minute on what exactly they're working for. And I think that will resonate with business owners because, let's be honest, the first thing they worry about is control. When you start to have a remote
Yeah.
workforce, I've lost a little
Yeah.
bit of my control, but you haven't. You haven't. And look,
No.
your remote workers are going to work just as hard as your in the building workers. I think if that's
Yeah.
the culture you establish in your company from top down, then that will be the culture that will be continued on, whether they're in the building or not.
Gavin, I'd like to go back to the trends in the labor market that you are seeing. So, do you see different trends for different types of roles in supply chain and logistics?
I do. I see. I definitely see a trend towards more back office support. Martin, we were talking about the financial analysts or the bookkeepers and accountants, but even like
Mm-hmm.
this dispatching and the inventory management are roles that I think are relevant. When I think about the labor economy, I'll use the U.S. as a brief example. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot's changed in the last 24 months. The pandemic really kind of tipped the scales in the industry of logistics and supply chain almost up on its head with the force of wanting things instantaneous, getting things delivered. You saw, using just, delivery and freight go upside down with regards to the costs for a shipment going up with I should say the cost of revenue of a shipment going up, but fuel costs coming down drastically. And then you saw the
Mm-hmm.
need for more drivers. So you had a labor shortage start to rear its head. And then it got to the point where in the last year you saw fuel costs rise back up again and the costs for freight drop. So you have this influx in the industry all in a short time period. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really caused business owners to think, how can I stay relevant? And where do I have opportunity to maybe cut some costs or reduce some added costs? But on top of that, you've got a retention issue. You've got people leaving for other jobs. You've got unemployment at an all-time low.
Yeah.
You've got this influx of jobs out there and wage competition. So it's a matter of what other roles in my own company do I think I can potentially have be remote? Do I have that trust to allow my accountant to work outside the building? Do I have the trust to have what was always an on or an in the building type role like dispatching and customer service? Can that be remote? And I think we talked a little about control and wanting to see those people face to face and shake their hands every morning and welcome to the office. Am I still able to do that? And the answer is absolutely. You can do that. You can do that through outsourcing and reducing some of your wage costs. You can. There are people out there in other countries that have the skill set and the education to do the role as good, if not better, than some of your onshore labor. And I think that's something that some of the business owners within logistics and supply chain are starting to realize that this is an opportunity. in my company, we've got a handful of logistics companies and shipping companies and freight companies that have embraced it. And the roles they've embraced it are around project management, website management and tech, financial analysts, dispatching, customer service, inventory management. So they're doing these roles that would predominantly always be an in the building type role, but is not now in some of these companies. And now they're seeing the benefits by not having to pay for onshore medical or health, along with the wages that are only going up.
Okay, so, Gavin, the image that these countries have, they're called well, in Dutch we say low wage countries. Yep. I guess the wage is lower than it is in the UK and it is in the United States, but the cost of living there is lower as well. So, but the image is it's cheap. And cheap is usually not the right word, right? When you talk about people and personnel, and you want quality as well.
Yeah, Martin, I would say you're on the right page with regards to the perception of outsourcing is always cost is the first piece that people think about. And then unfortunately, people then associate low cost with low quality. That is just entirely not true. While cost is a very appealing point to outsource, especially in this industry, the quality is absolutely there. The Philippines is a highly educated country, as is India and Colombia, and the cost savings is associated with the onshore cost of living in the Philippines, India, and Colombia. So these folks are highly skilled employees. They're highly educated. They English is spoken as fluently as it is in other countries. And I think what needs to resonate is the roles that we're mentioning here, especially in the supply chain and logistics industry, like some of these back office roles. These folks have been skilled and trained for in school, such as going to accounting school or learning U.S. or U.K. tax code, or understanding what type of skills are needed to be an expert dispatcher in Australia, or to understand the GAAP principles, accounting principles in the U.S. And I think people miss that piece of it because it's a big piece of this. These folks are coming into these roles with the background as would an onshore equivalent would have. And what needs to happen, and we talked about this earlier on, is we just need to trust in the fact that you're going to have the ability to hire and select who you'd like, just like you would onshore. And you're able to work with them in the same capacity from a tech perspective as you would onshore. What outsourcing also allows you to do is it gives you time back in your day to not focus on having to source an open headcount in your business, but actually spend time on what's the next great idea for your business. How can you improve your inventory counts because you're off base there? Or maybe it's, how do I scale and grow my shipping company to take on 20 more drivers? Or maybe it's, how do I get away from that temp company that's causing my wages to skyrocket for some of my onshore roles that I'm being competitive of? So it goes back to the trust in the process with getting the right skilled folks into your business, but also goes back to ensuring you've got people that can do the role and do it very cost effectively, but also with a high degree of quality.
Can you talk a little bit more about the trust and the culture part? Because I'm curious about how some of these, originally traditional logistics companies have made that switch. So what do you see them do? How do you see them incorporate remote people in their current onshore teams?
Well, I think there's always a stigmatism also, Martin, that if I don't see you every day, you're not working. or I can't track
Yeah.
your progress or your production. And like I
Yeah.
said, I feel as though the pandemic, while yes, the negative connotations initially are terrible, the positive behind it is we've learned to work in an environment where we can still leverage technology to have that person be remote and be very much in our culture and track their productivity. It's no different with outsourcing. We still give you the tools where you can track performance, but also what we've seen some of our companies do is to have all meetings on camera where you're having a relationship, is to spend time getting to know your employees as you would on shore, and have that as we call it in the US, that water cooler talk, that what did you do last night, that camaraderie that still needs to exist. We've seen folks literally, and with Cloudstaff, hang TVs on their walls with cameras so they can talk through the TV on camera to their team that's in the Philippines in a room in one of our offices, as if they're walking into their call center on shore. So it's really cool that some of the steps that people have taken to really embrace the culture, and what it's done is it's kept retention rates very strong, especially in an outsourcing world where retention's been a challenging KPI for us. But for the most part, using Cloudstaff as an example, our retention rates are 90%, 95% plus of our staffers, because they enjoy working with business owners, especially in the small and medium-sized space.
Yeah, it's one of the things that when I needed to work remotely, that I missed the most was what you call the water cooler talk. We usually talk about the coffee machine. We meet Americans meet at the water cooler, and Dutch people meet at the coffee machine.
That's right.
So but I guess that you need to create these non-scheduled, not business-like talks. You need some sort of mechanism for that as well.
I think we try and do our best, also urging our business owners to come visit. Come over to the Philippines, see what it's like, see what the culture is like. Even if you factor in 4 trips a year to the Philippines at a week each or 10 days each, you're still coming out on top at 50 to 60% savings with a high quality worker. That's going to stay with you and not drive your wages up. That's going to do a great job. And I think that's, by coming over and seeing the culture and visiting and seeing our offices, you get a better sense of community with your folks.
Yeah, and if you shook somebody's hand and really seen them, I mean, video already does absolutely does a lot. But if you've been in the room with somebody and just know how they move and that also just changes the relationship as well.
I completely agree, and unfortunately, I don't see the economy shifting anytime soon. I feel as though we're in this current situation for a longer period of time. And it's one of those things where companies need to start embracing it. I saw a stat the other day where less than 30% small business owners in the U.S. Are outsourcing, and they anticipate that tripling over the next 18 to 24 months. That that's the same flies with logistics companies and supply chain as well. These folks are coming up with new and interesting ways for not even back office. It's the folks that are going to lead gen for you, the folks that are going to help manage your marketing, and folks that are going to do your inventory counts. You're always going to have challenges with forklift drivers and inventory pickers. That's always going to be there. But can you mitigate some of that potential loss by looking at other roles to potentially outsource?
Yeah, so for a business owner that thinks like, okay, I have front office issues and I have back office issues. Yep. So let's at least eliminate part of that and outsource some back office roles to get some worries off my mind. So what are the steps that they would need to go through to start that process?
I think it's different for each outsourcing company. I know for Cloudstaff, what we ask folks to do is, obviously you have a job description with the skills needed to do the role. You would present that to us, and then and that's pretty much the start of the process. We would then take the time off your hands and go source for folks in country that meet your needs. And then we would, within about 7 days, even less in some cases, we would present back to you a handful of candidates, let's say 2 to 4 candidates at least, that meet your needs.
Yeah.
We would then invite you on camera to interview these folks and have a conversation just like you would normally do in your office. And then if you have 1 or 2 people that meet the needs that you think not only culturally, but also the performance and KPIs that you have out there, you would then come back to us, let us know that you'd like to extend an offer, and then we would go to market and make sure that these folks would fit within your offer space, and we would start that process. We would do all the other beauty of going through an outsourcing company is we handle all the logistics within country, meaning we're licensed to do business in the Philippines. You don't have to be.
Yes.
We handle all those regulations, and they're lengthy, I assure you. We also handle all of the HR pieces of the staffer. We handle their, the medical setup and any insurances they need. We handle all that process. We put them through a rigorous background check, just like you would normally do for an onshore worker. So we do a lot of the things to mitigate the risk for you to have that employee be in place. And then from there, once we have we put them through a new hire induction period, and then we also then present them back to you for a kickoff date where they're essentially your employee, but they work through Cloudstaff. So there are a lot of benefits because we take a lot of the legwork off your hands. One thing I also want to mention is because of the demand in certain roles, and we'll use accounting as an example, we've set up an academy where we're pulling folks in that have accounting background, and we're training them on recent tax code, let's say in the US. So they may have an accounting background coming from their Philippines school, but we're putting them through another rigorous training group or another coursework called Cloudstaff Academy, where they would learn GAAP principles, US tax code, bookkeeping. And we do that for other countries as well, like Australia, as well as the UK. So the opportunity there is more staff available at a short turnaround. In today's market, in some cases, you may be looking for someone for 30 to 45 days, maybe longer. We can probably provide a grouping of people to you in less than 30 days from start to finish. So that time piece allows the business owner to get back to what's really important to them, which is how to grow their business and how to continue to stay relevant.
So so from the point that I say, like, okay, now I'm going to outsource my accounting. So typically, within how many days could I have somebody? Well, at least on their first work day. I know they will not be fully operational because you need to train them. But within how many days can you have the first person
report in? I would say it's safe to say probably in a 30-day time period is very acceptable. So.
That's fast.
Yeah, very fast. Like I said, 4 to 6 weeks in some countries for that same type of role. And staying on the accounting piece, accounting is not easy to source in Australia, the UK, or the US right now. Accountants are very much in demand, and especially in the building accountants, because the pandemic has taught us to we are able to work remotely. The employees also want to be remote now, so they want to work remote. There's so you have that challenge that also is out there. I will also say with outsourcing in general, we also have a model that allows you to be flexible. You can have folks work from home. You can have folks work from an office. And that's within the outsourcing company. We have offices throughout the Philippines that many of our workers use. And we even have a hybrid model where folks can come in if needed due to any sort of, maybe their internet's down or their power's out. So we have redundancy built in that, frankly, onshore, they may not have those redundancy pieces built in. If the power is out at my home, I got to run to a Starbucks or I got to run somewhere else or a coffee shop. Not many companies take that in consideration, but with outsourcing, we build in redundancies so they don't have to worry about that, especially at Cloudstaff.
And if I understand you correctly, because that's I guess an important point that I took from what you said, is that if I go and outsource one of my positions to somebody offshore, I don't need to train them on local or on the rules and regulations here. That part is done. It's just what are my own company's processes
Bingo.
that they need to be familiar with,
Yes.
and it's stuff like that you need to train them for.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
They're coming in with the general knowledge. What they're probably lacking is your business's personal knowledge or your business's policies and procedures that you'd have to train, just like any new employee onshore coming into your company. There's no difference there.
Okay. So, Gavin, what I would like you to do now is take out your crystal ball.
Okay.
And just look deep into it, and then share with us what you see in I don't know. You can choose the time period, 5 years ahead, or 10 years ahead, or maybe 20 years ahead, when it comes to the whole labor market and outsourcing. And what trends do you see? What developments do you think? What's the next thing?
I think of outsourcing as a whole. We've been doing this for 30, 40 years. And it's always had a mixed connotation. 30 years ago, it had this negative connotation where you weren't going to get this quality, or, it would be a challenge to oversee that employee. And fast forward to the pandemic, and we've realized, well, maybe I can, manage folks remotely. Maybe I can ensure performances an all-time high. I don't see outsourcing. I only see outsourcing getting bigger and bigger. Enterprises now, 90% of most large multinational enterprises are outsourcing in some facet or another in some business unit. Like I said, less than 30% of small to medium-sized enterprises are outsourcing. That will grow exponentially over the next, I think, the next year to 2 years at the very minimum, as it's growing now. As it comes to supply chain and logistics, I do believe that business owners are starting and have started to realize there are many roles within my company that I can potentially work with that are already going remote. Now, can I take it one step further and outsource, especially on the back office side of the business?
Gavin, thank you very much for sharing your vision on the current, but also the future state of the labor market, and educating the listeners on how and why they can outsource back office jobs.
Martin, I appreciate you having me. And I also would say, and not to carry this on, but look at outsourcing not as just a people business, but look at it as a platform. Look at it as a structure that you can lean on and really base your future on. And I think once people wrap their arms that this is a structure that is cohesive, it's airtight when it comes to performance. You get a quality employee that works for you, not against you. And I do feel that folks will then embrace the trust piece of it that we mentioned before and start to put more stock behind it and get more folks, more roles in their company shifted towards outsourcing.
Thank you for listening to Does Logistics Matter? For more on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics, visit our blog at www.logisticsmatter.com. If you want to be a guest on this podcast, please send an email to podcast@logisticsmatter.com. This podcast was produced by Dimitry VleugelThe. The music is based on a sample by Ragaman and produced by Michael Spengler. This episode was supported by Cloudstaff. Cloudstaff is the fusion of great people, innovative technology, and a culture that engages their staff and promotes personal and professional growth. It fully utilizes technology to remove the limitations associated with remote workforces and fully integrates local and remote teams with tools, systems, and processes that deliver complete control and visibility. For more information, visit cloudstaff.com. Well, thank you very much, Kevin.